that's weird. Where's the music, folks? Where's the music? What was that? That was static. Let's go with the outro. Hey folks, Dan here. First time offender. How are you, man?
Great. How are you? Thanks. It's great to finally meet you, Dan, and talk in person here. And yes, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And for people who don't know what the heck you've been up to, I want to start right off the bat with a video. Let's just pick this one here. Check this out, folks. So, folks, before we get into gear, we're going to geek out on gear. Whether you're a drummer or not, it's so easy to geek out on percussion gear, right? I'm going to show another video because I want you to kind of soak it in and get a little taste of some stuff that's different. And this is what caught my ear, caught my eyes when I started following Greg. So I'm just going to randomly click on another video. Let's go with this one. Awesome timekeeping and multitasking dexterity. And a guy named John Molinar, the head of the Michigan State University psychology department, told me once that there's no such thing as multitasking. And I kind of get that because we jump from thing to thing to thing to thing. But as drummers, we really are doing multiple things at the same time. And you are there on the, are they called plastic blocks now? On the wood blocks or whatever. You're doing one thing, keeping time, tick tock, and you're doing a whole other ostinato on the other instruments. And it's fascinating to me. So my first two questions are, how long have you been doing what you're doing like that? And what do you call it, Greg?
So really with that specifically, I mean, I guess that would fall under the category of multi-percussion. You know, you're taking a different set of percussion instruments, really kind of finding your highs, mids, and lows, and really trying to emulate somewhat of an open drum set or trap kit, if you will. With that specifically, I mean, I grew up a drum set player, and that's where most of my time and effort and energy is put in towards. And that's, as far as gigging, like drum set that's my bread and butter. Like that's where I'm most comfortable. So with the multi-percussion stuff, that's really something that I kind of dove into once I was in music school at UNF in Jacksonville. And, I was doing obviously, all marimba and orchestral repertoire and just sort of getting into the world of a percussion major. And I was really way over my head. I had no idea what I had gotten myself into. And
wait, let's back up a step. Think about what you just said. And you told me earlier you have a 1-year-old son.
Right.
So what you just referenced that to will pale in comparison to now being a new dad. Just tuck that away, just saying, okay, continue, please.
So, as a drum set player, like I was kind of missing that, in music school. I wasn't playing a ton of drum sets. So one of my teachers kind of introduced me to the world of percussion ensemble and multi percussion, and I was like, this is really cool. This is basically a standing up drum set in its own way. And I was finding that the literature that I was learning and really what existed at the time, just that was also missing something there. Yeah, it was a lot of cool stuff, but there's weird polyrhythms and very, very technical playing. I was like, man, this would sound cool if it had like a, you know, 30 seconds of like a really fat groove or something really intense. So, that's something with multi percussion I knew that I had expressed interest in, and I really started digging into that and finding repertoire that kind of fit my needs and my ear of like that's it, like that has a cool groove, it has a solo section, while still having all the technical aspects of classical percussion and any of our modern percussion now. So I would say doing this kind of what most people see me do on social media. Oh boy, I'd say within the last like 8 to 10 years, maybe. Just kind of having fun, and I noticed that it was something that a lot of people weren't doing. So I was like, that's just one way to set myself apart, rather than, all right, I'm going to post my daily drum set groove or playing along with a cover. Or, I was like, let's get a little creative. And let's be honest, like setting up a full drum set and all that, it's pretty time consuming. It's much easier to grab a bass drum, mount it on those legs with a trap stack and some blocks and call it a day. So
that's cool.
Is laziness, and I'll admit that, but
it's not laziness, it's creative. Look what you've done with it. And speaking of covers, the first person who can comment on Facebook and the first person who can comment on YouTube, where we're live right now, each of you, maybe it's the same person if you're really quick, you get a Drum Talk TV shirt of your choice. And we've got like 36 designs. So here comes the cover. Ready? On your mark, get set. Not yet. Hold on. I haven't played the video yet, folks. Here we go. What? It didn't play the video. That's weird. Hold on. Here we go. Something going on with, of course, I offer a shirt, and now it's not. Let's try a different video just for a moment. Let's go here. It's not playing the videos. This is crazy. Well, let me ask you this. How do you go? We'll get back to that. Steve, maybe you can check that in the background. And if a video just pops up, that's Steve working the controls in the background, our producer, and he'll figure it out, hopefully. Right? I think so. How do you choose? Like you mentioned the highs and lows, trap kit. You mentioned that F word. If I knew that, we would have censored it. Having fun. Well, really, God forbid people have fun playing music. You know what, Greg? I think a lot of people overthink what they're doing, and they don't want to make videos unless it's perfect and this. Like, what the heck is perfect? Just have fun, make videos, right? How do you go about selecting the tones and the combination of things like the blocks? You got the bass drum. I've seen you play with mallets. You had a mallet instrument in one of those videos. You got I don't even know what to call the different cymbals and stuff, but do you just like go, let me take this, that, and the other thing and see what it sounds like? Or are you familiar enough with all that gear that it's methodically put together tonally, or what is it? Not judging, just asking.
It's a great question. It's something that, a lot of people ask me, and now that I've gotten to that point, I am a little more thoughtful in that process. But man, you really nailed it. It's like I have a couple pieces of gear that are kind of a must, of like
the go-to.
Having a bass drum and some sort of, I usually use a clap stack in
real staccato, right?
Yeah. So really, if I have just those two, I kind of build it from there. And for me, with these multi-percussion setups, like less is more. For me as the performer and somebody that's creating on the spot, if I only have a couple pieces of gear, it really pushes that level and sense of creativity to what can I really get out of these 3 or 4 instruments rather than
Oh yeah.
enormous setup. So I try to keep it simple, to push myself as far as creativity. But like I said, for the listener, if I can really stretch the boundaries and sort of the nuances of like bass drum, clapstack, and bongos, and make that a whole 30 to 40-second groove, it gives a lot of focus and love and attention to bongos or just bass drum, rather than using it, sparingly and just a couple of hits here and there, which is fine. But yeah, and I don't really pre-plan this stuff a ton. A lot of the videos that you do see and that I create, it's either in between classes or after school or during lunch. So the time frame is pretty small with that, like the window. And so I kind of go in with a basic, very general idea, and then just kind of roll with it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I love that. I have some comments about that. I see Steve in the background. Steve, let's see if you could throw in the cover that I mentioned. But they'd sound completely differently, right? I mean, it seems like one of the things you've really hit on really well is you've got the, you got the bass drum, then the real staccato stacker, and then maybe some things that are totally different tonality wise differently, like the blocks and whatnot. Have you experimented with taking the same groove and playing it on different setups?
Yeah, in a way. I guess just sonically, just thinking about those specific instruments of having your bass drum and then having a clap stack, and I guess even just placement of where the drums are, like that puts me in a totally different frame of mind of how often am I going to use the bass drum if I'm right hand dominant, if I put it on the left side, and then just kind of thinking about it that way too. But yeah, I like to get a little creative, but without reinventing the wheel. It's all stuff that's been done, and again, just taking a couple instruments, visually and sonically, it allows the listener to just, I guess, lean in a little more and focus on just those couple things. So that's what I've started doing, and sometimes I'll have a more elaborate setup based on if I'm doing a project or if I'm just feeling ambitious and it's like I want more tones and want to get a little crazy. But more often than not, I like to keep it at just a couple things and just roll with it, honestly.
And even though I might not see it, because I didn't see it, but let's see if someone can comment. Let me see if someone did already. I'll get to those questions. Oh, okay. Okay, wait. Here we go. Hold on. Check this out, folks. All right. For some reason, I'm not seeing it. Maybe you are, Greg. I don't know, but I'm going to play one more time this cover to see if someone gets it. All right. Who has that? Let's take a look real quickly. Were you able to see the video, Greg?
I was.
Wow, I was not able to see it. That's really bizarre. Something is weird with StreamYard. Well, let's take a look at the comments. Don't stop till you get enough.
Close.
All right, so I'm going to give this shirt to All Things Creative. He guessed Michael Jackson, and you're playing one of your setups with, I don't recall because I didn't see the video just now, but did he have a baritone horn, if I remember correctly, or a tuba?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, now I can't hear Greg. What the heck is going on here? Let me try that again.
Okay.
Go ahead and talk, Greg.
Check.
Oh, boy, this is crazy. Steve, do you hear Greg? Steve's watching and he's in the background. I don't know what's happening with this platform.
Okay. So when did you start playing drums, and who were your influences at the time?
So I started pretty young. I grew up in a musical household. My dad was always playing and had a kit in the house. And so as early as I can remember, I've just always been around it. I would say, I probably started and got interested around, I don't know, maybe 7, 8 years old, and just kind of took it from there. Just took a natural liking to it, and always enjoyed just listening to music together with my parents in the car and just around the house. And it was drums, and especially listening to music, and specifically listening to the drums, that was a big part of just my upbringing. And my parents have always been incredibly supportive of my musical journey, so I really have to give it up to them as my inspiration, and just kind of where I am today. So aside from my parents, I started listening to Rush at a very early age, and I grew up in the kind of the mid to late 90s, so it was its own era of music, so I was really big into Rage Against the Machine. Creed was big when I was a kid. Oh gosh, the list goes on of that 90 to alternative 90s into the early 2000s, and definitely early 2000s hip hop. Timbaland is just a huge inspiration to me as a producer, and just his ear for different beats and that style, which I've talked to Timbaland, and we've
Oh, nice.
He knows who I am, which is crazy. I look up to him again as a musician, and the hits that he put out in the early 2000s, the guy is just at a different level. So and then you have Outkast, and again, the list goes on of your early 2000s, late 90s hip hop, R&B, alternative rock, and classic rock was still a big part of my listening and upbringing, as an artist, and sort of the inspiration. So,
did you get to see any of them in concert, like Rush, Rage Against the Machine, or any of those others?
Rage is still on my list. I know they're going back on tour. So, and I know that Brad Wilk is a fellow Ludwig artist. So that's bucket list for me, is to try to meet up with Brad Wilk. That would be insane. I'm going to make that happen. We're going to make it happen. But I actually did see Rush when I was in 7th grade. I saw him down in Tampa, Florida with my dad and a buddy of mine, and it was amazing. And, we were probably the youngest kids there, but it didn't really matter.
And which tour would this have been?
That was Snakes and Arrows. So that was one of their newer albums. I was
07, 08, something like that.
Yeah. So I think, oh gosh, I think I was in I was in 7th or 8th grade at the time. So they had just put that out, and then we saw them again, I think in Tampa as well, and that was for the R30 tour. And that was actually, I think that was the last time that they were on tour.
Yeah, or R40, yeah.
R40, yeah. So I got to see Rush twice, and it was incredible. The musicality of just those three guys together and the chemistry is like, I mean, you listen to those songs and you go to the show live and you just laugh. It's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, I got to see them on the Clockwork Angels tour. Dad and I are huge Rush fans, and yeah, like Clockwork Angels is my favorite album, and just the showmanship that they put. I mean, the effects and the video that they put together, like the staged like narrative video stuff that they would do. Like they were just really on it. It was incredible.
Yeah. So it was super cool, and I'll definitely cherish those moments, seeing them both times with my dad, my family, and just a really cool experience, and that's something I definitely would have regretted, growing up and aspiring. Neil influenced so many drummers on so many different levels, and to get to see him live, I can say I did that. So yeah, and I tell my students that all the time. It's like, go see live music. Like, it's here, especially in Jacksonville. There's tons of artists always coming through town. There's great concerts, just especially the people that you enjoy, and that you really dig. Like, go see them. Like, if you can swing it, and it's in your schedule, it's in your budget, like just go, just do it.
Yeah, and speaking of which, I'll go ahead and show this live clip of you in a concert, and then I'll also play a couple of these other videos, and then we'll come back and talk a bit more about drumming and whatever else comes up,
Okay, cool.
And I see Dad sent in a couple, like a question or two. But before I read those off, I'm curious myself, because I don't think I've ever asked a drummer this, but do you ever feel like you are a different drummer in the live setting versus like indoors, not in front of an audience? Like, does it ever feel like you are two different drummers? It might be kind of a naive question, me not being a musician, but I'm kind of curious your perspective.
I mean, yes and no. I feel like if we talk about like specifically some of the grooves that I'm doing on like social media and sort of these small setups and multi-percussion things, I'm now finding myself in situations or creating those opportunities to kind of play those setups out in the real world, and not just in my little the auditorium that I record in at the school. And a lot of that is just for fun and just putting it out there, and again for my own creative outlet, if you will. most of my gigging stuff, and when I'm on stage, I'm playing drum set. And, as a musician, I'm trying to find, I guess, and connect or make those connections of some of the independent things that I'm working on with multi-percussion and not using my feet, and how can I translate and apply that to drum set. So I think it's all, in a way, to answer your question, it's pretty full circle. But yeah, there are times where maybe I don't get to be as creative, or if I'm doing if I'm playing drum set for like a wedding gig, we're playing top 40 stuff. My job and role is very different. I'm maybe not taking as many musical risks. I my job and playing with the band is kind of feeling everybody out, and laying down time and making sure everybody is sort of locked in, and the chemistry is there. Versus something else like the live clip that was at a jam session at Jack's Beach. And in those instances, it's like I can maybe use some of those skills that I'm working on in my videos, and just have fun, I guess. But there's definitely for me as a musician, a time and place for everything. If I'm on like a quiet, or like a dinner kind of jazz gig, like I'm not going to be crushing notes and doing all this sort of stuff. It's like I understand what's happening, and what my role needs to be in that situation. So if that answers your question at all.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. So this auditorium where you filmed a bunch of these videos, so where is this? What's the story behind it? Or is it like a classified secret type thing?
So it's actually the school that I teach at. So I teach at a private 6 through 12 school here in Jacksonville. And so I'm the instrumental or director of instrumental music and the performing arts department chair there. So and I primarily work with the high school groups, high school students that I have. And that was, it's funny how that works, man. Like I didn't go to music school for music education. I did full performance for both my bachelor's and master's. And then I end up teaching as most of my time as a musician. And I love it. Like it's really great. It's a great place that supports me as an artist. The students there are just wonderful people. And getting to work with them from their 6th grade year, potentially all the way through 12th grade, it's really cool. I get to form these relationships and bonds with some of these students and their families. And I have students now that have already graduated college. I'm like, oh God, like this is just it makes you feel old, man. But it's so cool to just have some impact or a positive impact on their lives, and how music has played into that. So I'm really seeing that, and really seeing the bigger picture, rather than, I'm a band director and that's what I do every day. It's like, again, making these connections that are going to last with students, and how music can still very well be a part of their lives, even if they're not majoring in music. Whether they're teaching in some capacity, or they're just playing on weekends and having fun, or if years go by and they decide to pick up their instrument again, they remember those times, all the early mornings and all the rehearsals that they had with me at some point, whether they liked it or not. And it's once they grow up, it's like, oh, that wasn't so bad. Like it all makes sense. So.
Yeah, what would you say is the most surprising thing that you've witnessed, like with these students when playing around with music?
The most surprising, I don't know. I think it's always cool, and what kind of I guess would be surprising or shocking is providing students with the tools of like, all right, learn your scales, do this, do that. This is how you get to the next level. And that's really on the student. I, as a teacher and an educator, can only push them so much without maybe pushing them to the point where they become not as engaged, or they're not interested, or they
Right. Like you don't want to micromanage or anything.
Right. Right. For sure. So I think what would be, or what I have found is surprising, is that, with being a little more hands off, some of these kids just go all in. Like they become so fixated and obsessed, and but that's through, I think, just leading by example of, like, they see me, and are a great friend and colleague of mine that teaches the middle school groups. We're active musicians. We're not just your everyday, like, band director, educator, where that's all you do, right? We find that balance. So we're out on weekends. We gig during the week. We're out traveling now, and just sharing our love for music, and the students see that without us explicitly saying that. We're just doing it because we love it, and that's what we do. So for some of these students that just go all in, and they're shedding like crazy, and now they're wanting to pursue music, I think that is just, like, it's cool to see. I think in the grand scheme of things, it's not maybe like a huge surprise, but once they sort of get that itch for it, they love it. And I feel like at that point, there's no turning back. You get so invested in becoming a musician, and finding your inspirations, and you start making some money gigging, and what could be. I think that's always really cool to see, as an educator.
Yeah, because we all know lots of people, like, especially young people, love music. They get into all sorts of different kinds of music, but it's a different experience actually witnessing the evolution firsthand, seeing how their interests evolve. Now in the comments, I see Lindsay McDonald tuning in on YouTube. Earlier Lindsay said Rush rocks. Only got to see Rush once, so good. And I love the creativity. What kind of wood is that? So that refers to one of the earlier videos we played. So
yeah, so a lot of the wood percussion instruments that I play, there's temple blocks, there's tonal planks, and that's it for most of the wood. That's from a good friend of mine, Ryan, at Rustic Percussion. He's based out of California, so he has some access to some really cool exotic woods. And funny story, he doesn't consider himself like a master woods worker, as some people do. It's actually something he found through the pandemic, of just like, I'm a percussionist. I think he was working for Disney as a performer at one point.
Oh, really?
And just kind of was like, all right, well, I'm just going to kind of start making some stuff, and just fell into it. And man, he's arguably has some of the best temple blocks and some of the wood percussion instruments in the game. Like, super cool guy. He's been a big supporter and a great friend over the years. And he's got the best slapstick you can buy, for sleigh ride. You use it once a year, but that whenever you need it, he's got it. So that's Rustic Percussion. Yeah, he's awesome.
Nice. I'm gonna go ahead and play a few other of these videos, and then we'll come back. So check this out, folks. Nice. So that last one there involves like a water gong. What's the story behind that?
Yeah, so that's a little oh gosh, I guess that would be a pang gong from Steve Weiss Percussion. Um, they're pretty cheap. I think you get them for like under 20 bucks. And yeah, it's thin enough to where, just dip it in water and you get the pitch bend and all of that. And and that's something that's been around since, oh gosh, we're going like 1960s or maybe before that. John Cage. So the whole story with putting metal and gongs in water goes back to John Cage. And it's I guess the legend is that was like the one way to I guess incorporate that into synchronized swimming, so the swimmers could hear something underwater. So he would hit it and dunk it in the pool. But yeah, it's just fun. You I guess with a lot of like percussion instruments, unless you're applying force on a head, you're not really able to bend pitches like you would with brass, woodwind, stuff like that. So I think it's always cool to hear percussion instruments be able to do that in a different capacity, especially with metals. And people dig it. It's one of those like very electronic, like keyboard synth sounds, but you're doing it in real time with a real instrument. So that's fun without like beating it to death. I did like 2 of those. And I was like, all right, I think people get the idea. I'm not going to be that guy that starts just dunking everything in water. And it's like, okay.
Yeah. What's next? Dunking electronic drums in water.
Right. Yeah.
I see Mr. Lindsay McDonald chiming in again saying Greg Hersey rocks. Great job. Creativity. That sounded pretty great. And All Things Creative said, is that just 2 overhead mics? So I think they're asking about your setup maybe, or
just phone.
Oh, just phone?
No
okay.
mic. It's the room that I'm playing in, that auditorium, it just has incredible natural acoustics. And I kind of found that early on. So some of the people that have been following me for okay, camera, hello, goodbye. There we go. It'll figure itself out.
Yeah, hopefully we all will.
Some people that have been following me for a little while. There we go. I used to do my videos in like the actual band room that I teach in, and I was like, oh, it's fine. It's a big space, whatever. And I guess just one day I was like, we do all of our performances in here. Let me do a video in here. And there was a noticeable difference. Just, and I don't do anything in post. That's literally raw iPhone audio to Instagram, done. No reverb, no compression, nothing. So with drums, it picks up everything so well, and it's pretty clear. But it makes it a little more authentic and just honestly easier for me. Like setting up mics and your interface computer, it's like, I don't have like really all the gear for that. I know some of my friends have just thousands of dollars worth of stuff, and when I want to do it legit, I do. I confide in them, and they're the people that know that world and have all the gear. It's like great. It's great to have friends that have awesome gear. But for me, I literally just use my phone, and it works well in that space. So
yeah, because we've been surprised before how much our phones are able to pick up like footage wise if we're like video recording like a painting up close or something, but the sound, like just the fact that it works so well in those videos, that's like all you need. Like no disrespect to professional cinematographers who would want to go big and all that, but if it works, it works.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. So and so are you you mentioned the Jam earlier, so is that a band you regularly play with, or are there any bands you regularly play with?
Nothing regularly right now. that clip specifically, that was just down at Jack's Beach at one of the venues or a bar. And you know, the local music scene here is pretty great. There are some incredible musicians in Jacksonville. You know, it's not LA, it's not Nashville. It's there, we're not bursting at the seams here, but you know, sort of the core group of musicians, it's like, especially the people that come through town and go through some of the universities, or just honestly have lived here and play. Um, there are some killer musicians here, which is always fun to be able to network and connect, and you know, go out to these jams and support other artists, and just get to hang and have a good time. As far as like regular stuff, you know, I do some like corporate like wedding band stuff, and more often than not, you play with some of the same people, but there are very few times where, you know, you play a wedding and it's the exact same group. It's, you know, we'll have rhythm section, a couple singers, some horns. So you have anywhere from 8 to 10 people on stage, and it just kind of rotates out of people in town or in the area, and that's great too. You know, sometimes it's a little nerve wracking because you're playing, you know, for somebody's wedding, which is a pretty big event, and you know, the pressure's on to like sound great. And you know, when you're playing with great musicians, everybody sort of has the same mindset and is prepared, or hopefully, and you just have time and do the thing. So
yeah. And I see All Things Creative asking, I heard earlier some West Africa, Mali, or Senegal vibes. Do you draw from that music?
In a way, I feel like I should more. And, you know, as a percussionist, like I learned this in school of like, you know, we're focusing so much on classical repertoire and percussion ensemble and drum set and marimba, and, you know, the exposure that we would have to really world percussion, which any sort of hand drumming or Latin percussion or African, you know, djembe playing, anything like that. I mean, it's just mind blowing. And like, as a percussionist, our job is to try to be, I feel like, well versed in as much as you can, you know, be great at drum set, be great at mallets, be great at marching percussion, you know, hand drumming, like at least be able to know the basic techniques and how to produce a great sound, and just be as versatile as you can. But when it comes to that, and, you know, like Brazilian drums, it's just like, it's its own world, man. And it's like, gosh, I'm so far behind still. Like I could go to like West Africa and study with like a master djembe player for 5 years and come back and feel like I'm like just scratching the surface. So yeah, I definitely think pulling from different influences, especially around the world, and sometimes getting out of our little bubble of like just artists that we know and that we're comfortable with. I mean, that's how you become a great musician, is just you kind of you find different levels of inspiration, you know, whether that's different styles, different players, different parts of the world. That's really the key.
Yeah. I guess Dad was trying to see if he got things
there
working.
He goes.
But so I guess that leads us into one thing I want to say before getting into the next segment is I totally get what you mean. How, you know, for example, like you might be a fan of Rush or Rage Against the Machine, but you don't want to sound exactly like them. You want to listen to other artists that you might not be super familiar with, and then that you could throw more ingredients into the blender, if you will, and you basically be you know.
Sure.
Lindsay says cameo LOLs. But yeah, so the last segment is the Greg Hersey fun fact segment. So whenever you're not playing music or teaching music, doing any teaching, what do you like to do in your spare time?
Oh Oh gosh, so what is spare time anymore? Um, I don't know, man. Like being a new parent and stuff like that. That is obviously very time consuming, and I love it. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. So, um, and being a full-time musician, that's very time consuming as well. So I feel like if I'm not doing something music related, like just focusing and hanging with family, and just navigating through parenthood like that, that is
Yeah, it's its own journey. Yeah.
it's its own thing. I mean, I've always been an athlete, so like this past weekend was my brother's birthday, and we went paintballing. I had never gone paintballing before. I don't know why, but just doing some different active things. Play golf, pool, play soccer every once in a while. So just trying to get active and get outside and just have fun like that. Oh man, I don't know. I feel like just my whole life is just revolved. If I'm not like playing, then I'm wanting to like go check out live music or go to a show or do something like that. Yeah, so I would say, I know it's kind of boring, but just like
No, it's not.
sports and family, like
I mean,
but,
I guess.
I don't know realistically what else I could get into. Like, I'm not a huge gamer. I'll play every once in a while, but
Right. Like I was gonna say, when like our hobbies or what we do in our spare time is fun to us, but I kind of get the sense that whenever, if anyone asks me, oh, what were you up to over the weekend or something, and I remember that I was reading like a couple books or playing a video game, but for the very act of describing it, I feel like I'm being very boring the way I'm describing it, and it just sounds like a very mundane thing when really, like, to me, it was just such a really fun thing to do,
yeah.
So last question. If you could travel anywhere in the world you've never been before, where would you go?
Oh man, see, that's a tough question for me because honestly, I'm not a huge like. I've never been that person of like I want to travel the world. I want to see all these places. I can be pretty hermity. Like, dude, the first time I saw snow, I was like 26. I was like, what's going on? It like blew my mind. I had never been up north or in an area like that time of year. Like, lived in Florida my whole life, and yeah.
Yeah, I thought I was late to the game at like 13, I think it was. So like half that age. Seeing snow at 13.
Man, I don't know. And like I know my wife and I have talked about this. Like, and I can't say Ireland because we went to Ireland. Like that was one of the places I was like, we gotta go, and it was awesome. Like, we were there for 10 days. So maybe Japan.
Okay.
And I don't have like any specific region in Japan, but I just feel like, some of my friends and colleagues that have traveled there, and they just have such great experiences of just, the culture, obviously the food. Yeah, I feel like Japan would be one of those places that would just kind of blow your mind of like, it's unlike anything that we would have here in the US. Obviously.
Yeah. I have a friend who went to Japan a couple months ago, and she had a really fun time. And I have another friend who's traveling there right now. And, in his stories, it always seems like there's always something cool that he's checking out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that would be a cool adventure.
I'd have to go with Japan. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for taking the time to talk about drumming, percussion, and golf was all the things you mentioned. Sports. So hang on the line, Greg, as we say goodbye to the audience, and after the stream ends, we'll see if we can get Dad back on so he can talk with us before you head off. But folks, you can follow us at Drum Talk TV pretty much everywhere, all our socials, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and you can also check out our membership site, drumtalktvbrilliance.com. Check out the Vinnie Paul celebration challenge we have going on, and happy heavenly birthday to him. And yeah, so thank you everyone. We'll see you all soon.